Today's episode, we're going to be talking about soil health and the importance of soil health. Now, the ground is something we all kind of just walk on. We don't really think much about, right? You look back and say, okay, there's a bunch of dirt here, and it's dirty, it's dusty. You don't want to get on your clothes. You don't want to, whatever. And we just kind of take it for granted that it's there a lot of times. But the cool thing about dirt and the cool thing about soil specifically is that it is the foundation of all life on Earth. It is literally the thing that allows life on this planet to exist. Not just because we grow plants on it, but because the entire ecosystem is really dependent upon the soil. For example, plants obviously depend upon the soil because they grow in the soil, right? They grow in, they get their nutrients out of the soil, they get water from the soil, and they utilize those water and nutrients with carbon dioxide and sunlight to produce energy through photosynthesis, right? Now, it also takes some of that energy that is generated during photosynthesis and puts it back into the soil and feeds the soil again. So what does that do? That feeds the microorganisms, which there's millions and millions, actually trillions of animals that live in the soil as an ecosystem. There's worms, there's nematodes, there's little insects, there's all kinds of different things that basically take that matter, that organic matter, and process it. And then they, of course, create nutrients that are available for the plants. And then that whole ecosystem just keeps going. Now, we, of course, eat plants. We eat plants as well as livestock. They all eat the plants for food because they take that energy, right? And that allows us to live, right? We have all of that energy also takes carbon dioxide out of the air. You know, whether we had any kind of industrial revolution or not, whether we have cars or any kind of factories or anything else blowing carbon dioxide in the air, we still have carbon dioxide from all the animals walking around breathing, right? The plants are able to capture a lot of that carbon dioxide and sequester that back down into the soil so that it doesn't get up into the atmosphere. We're having this big debate these days about let me turn this off here. Sorry guys. We're having this big debate about greenhouse emissions, right? The environment. And well, what's causing it? Of course, we're putting a lot of carbon dioxide into the air through fossil fuels and this type of stuff, but the soil is what actually sequesters a lot of that carbon. And the problem is not so much that we're putting all this carbon dioxide into the air. The problem is that the soil is no longer sequestering and pulling that carbon dioxide back down out of the atmosphere and holding it there. As a result, of course, you get greenhouse gases, you get problems with the ocean, you get changes in the ecosystem, and all kinds of other things happen. And that's all because of the soil. Now, there's a really good documentary that I recommend, and it's for laymen. It's not necessarily for farmers only, and it's called "Kiss the Ground." It's a really good environment. It goes into the environmental factors of soil. But in this episode, I really want to discuss the importance of soil for obviously growing crops, because of course most of our fans are gardeners and farmers, and they want to know, how can I grow healthy plants for everybody to eat? How can I make more money on my farm utilizing not only this technology, but all these different tools that are available to farming? And of course, the soil is one of the most important things. So I'm going to just pull this up here. So again, we are the future of farming today, and I'm going to share this with you here. And what we're doing to improve the soil is really to enhance the biology of the plant to make it a super efficient. You know, Fulvio Bamelli was the inventor of this amazing technology, and he was a researcher in Italy that really was studying human physiology. And he noticed that human physiology is being decimated by poor food quality. So he decided to spend 20 years of his life to really research plant physiology so that he can develop a technology that would allow them to create more energy more efficiently and utilize less pesticides and less fertilizers. Okay. Now, pesticides and fertilizers over time are going to ruin the soil because they kill the microbiology in the soil. They're going to make it, they're going to continually deplete the soil, which of course means more and more fertilizer every year. And that's going to cost the farmers a lot more money. If a farmer is saying, well, fertilizer's cheap now, but then what happens in 6 months from now or a year from now when that price of fertilizer goes up, or they realize that their soil needs a lot more fertilizer now than it used to 10 years ago? you know Farming is a generational type thing. You want to pass it on to your sons and your daughters and your family and keep it in the family. And most farmers that I talk to, they work with their sons. They work. It's a familial type business. It's a lifestyle where the entire family just takes over generation after generation after generation. And we're, of course, here to help farmers make more money and improve the quality of the produce they're producing. Now, what kind of problems do farmers usually have? Now, of course, poor quality and quantity of yields, poor soil health. Now, that's very, very important. Decreased root density and root growth in the plants. That's also important for soil health, which I'll get into in a second here. And then nutrient absorption and utilization. One of the biggest problems that I see and hear from farmers is that their soil is becoming too sodium rich. It's too high in sodium. It's too high in certain, or too high in sulfur, or too high in certain minerals that actually make it impossible for the plant to have a consistent yield. Now, what our technology is actually doing is it enhances soil health and nutrient availability. It enhances root density and root growth, and it balances um, nutrient absorption in the plant itself. So even if you have imbalances in the soil, you're able to have a plant that's still able to be relatively productive. And of course, when the plant is productive, it's converting a lot of those raw materials into energy, which again feeds the microbiology in the soil. And that in turn will kind of help to convert a lot of these minerals in the soil back into usable form for the plant. Now, there's a big difference between dirt and topsoil. Dirt is basically dead silicate for the most part. If you have dirt that's been really over farmed, or you have, even here in Florida, you just pick up the dirt and it's almost like beach sand. Even if you're in the middle of, you're growing lawn and you look down and it's beach sand, it's almost that bad. And it's because the minerals in the soil have been depleted to such a degree that it's really just silicone, silicate. It's not a lot of carbon. There's not a lot of calcium. There's not a lot of other minerals there. So for a farmer, that what does that mean? That means you better be adding more nutrients into your soil, because if you don't, you're going to get a lot of insect damage. You're going to get a lot of other problems, a lot of fungus and disease that are really going to wipe you out. Here in Florida, we have a disease called citrus greening, which has been wiping out the citrus industry because, in large part, of the fact that they unfortunately didn't take care of their soil the way they needed to years ago. And that caused this new insect, this new pathogen to come in and wipe out, most of the trees, and reduce the Brix rating, reduce the ability of those trees to produce fruit. Again, our technology does a lot of things. I'm going to skip over some of the results. Again, insect damage, bigger fruit, sweeter fruit, resistance to funguses, better production, obviously better quality and better production, better bricks, better weight, heat stress, all of these things, all these benefits to the Kyminasi plant booster, which can be found here. Faster growth rate on trees, and faster growth rate on nurseries, much bigger increases in size, you see here. But I really want to discuss quickly here some of the things we're doing for soil. Now, this is the first real key area of what the Kyminasi plant booster does. Now, before we get into, I guess I'm going to come back to this here. Before I get into like what we're actually doing in terms of our results for the soil, I want to just really kind of come back to what this technology is. The Kyminasi plant booster basically utilizes low frequency radio waves to directly stimulate the biological functions of plants. Now, just like a cell phone wave or just like a microwave, a radio wave is an electromagnetic signal that actually is used for communication. In the case of microwaves, you have ultra fast, ultra short waves that are used to heat up things. So microwaves are definitely not good. If you've heard a lot of controversy over 5G, that's one of the reasons why it has such a controversy, because it's kind of like a microwave that they're using to actually penetrate through walls and other things. So it's supposed to give you great data transfer, but it's not so good for health, so to speak. And I'll let you guys make up your own mind on 5G. You have cellular waves, which of course are also a very high frequency wave, which carry signals from cell tower to cell tower. But radio waves, if you think about it, they actually are very long and slow moving waves. If you think about it, you'll have a radio tower maybe 50 or 100 miles away, and you tune your radio in, and you can actually still get that signal, because those waves travel very long distances. And it of course carries the communication, in that case, music or talk or whatever. In the case of our system, what we're actually communicating to the plants is the exact frequency patterns that those plants need to be able to optimize their biological functions. It turns out that when a plant is absorbing nutrients and water from the soil, those cells responsible for nutrient and water absorption are operating at a very specific frequency pattern. And if we can mimic that frequency pattern and send that signal to the plants, it's going to really fine tune and optimize the plant's ability to absorb water and nutrients. Likewise with photosynthesis, the photosynthetic process in a plant, again, operates at a very specific wavelength or frequency pattern, which can be mimicked and sent back to the plant. And when we send the plant that specific wave pattern, the increase in photosynthetic activity will allow that plant to generate more energy during sunlight hours. There are additional signals that specifically target that specifically target chemical interactions in the soil, specifically what the microbiology is able to do in the soil, so that those microbes are able to really convert, say, atmospheric nitrogen or certain minerals into usable minerals that the plants can use. Now, the the added effect or the end effect of all of this is that the technology allows the plant it supercharges the water with these communication signals, and it allows the plant to really absorb nutrients more efficiently, produce photosynthetic energy much more efficiently, boost the overall energy of the plant, and of course that will translate into more fruit production, better fruit production, and higher quality as well. Now, when you can boost photosynthesis, it will also feed the microbiology in the soil, and that, of course, will help the long-term sustainability of that soil. It's kind of funny because sometimes I hear farmers saying, well, I'm a sustainable farmer, so I can't use your technology. And I'm saying, my technology is going to make your farm more sustainable because it is actually improving the factors. It's directly influencing the factors that will rebuild the soil. Now, rebuilding the soil is key to our long-term health, not just because of environmental issues, not just because of crop production, but because you want to have a very nice, healthy ecosystem for that plant. And when you do, the plants will thrive and you will get a much, much better quality product as well. So I'm going to skip back here to a couple of examples of what we've done for soil health. Now, this first one here is soil electric conductivity. Now, soil conductivity is an important component in terms of overall plant health because if a soil has a high pH, and that's usually caused by sodium or other types of minerals that are in high concentration relative to what they call anions or like nitrogen, like oxygen, like some of these other negatively charged ions. If it's too highly charged and too positively charged, then the plant won't be able to absorb the nutrients in the soil very efficiently. Now, if it's obviously too low or too acidic soil, you'll have the same problem. It has a certain tolerance band. Most plants actually operate at a pH between 6 and 7, which is a slightly acidic type of soil. But when you have a soil conductivity that's very high, it will not be able to grow properly because the mechanisms in the plant are not going to be able to operate if the soil has a high pH. And that's what happens in a lot of cases, such as in the Middle East and certain areas where you have a high saline content in the water and in the soil. With the Kyminasi plant boosters, this soil test shows we're able to reduce the amount of sodium concentration in the soil. For example, in the untreated field, it was 1.1, which was kind of high, and 2.3, which was actually kind of low in terms of a saline content. So we're really able to improve the soil conductivity of the soil here just by using these low frequency radio waves. And some of these radio waves, again, they're stimulating certain chemical interactions which allow nitrogen to stay in the soil longer, which of course reduces the pH overall, and it allows some of the cations such as sodium to go into solution and also be able to be neutralized. So very, very important for most farms because if you have a high salt content, you're going to have challenges keeping the plants healthy because they're not going to get the nutrients they need, and then the insects are going to start taking over because their immune system will be compromised. Let's take a look at some root structure examples. This is another way that we're helping with the soil because the roots push down into the soil, right? They actually help break apart the soil and reduce soil compaction. The other thing that a healthy root structure will do, of course, as the plant is generating energy, it's sending some of that energy back through the root system down into the soil to improve the overall energy content of the soil, and that will actually feed the microbiology in the soil. It'll feed the mycorrhizae, which is a fungal network in the root zone, and it will feed nematodes and certain other beneficial microbiology in the soil. And those microbes are what's really help. It's nature's way of sort of breaking down organic matter so that it can recombine those things into minerals that plants can then reuse. In this particular case, we had lemon trees after 9 weeks, and you see visually just see the difference here. After 9 weeks, the Kyminasi plant booster trees are much healthier, they're much stronger, and they have much longer root system versus the control or untreated trees here, which are very weak and very thin. Another example, again, going back to this particular example, was in Chile, this almond farmer had a soil compaction issue. In fact, we had a video, which I'll show you in another episode here, but we had a video from this farmer where he takes this clump of soil, literally it was like a big rock, and it was just he's digging up the soil, and the soil is very clumpy, it's like a big rock. And what happened was the soil was so compacted that and so that it just water could not go through it, and he was having to water 12, 10, 12, 13 hours at a time, just so the water would be able to slowly trickle through this compacted soil and get to the depth that he needed to feed his trees or to water his trees. With Kyminasi Plant Booster, after watering for 12 weeks, we were able to help, the signals in that system is helping to break apart that soil compaction, in addition to, of course, feeding the root system, which is helping to break that soil compaction apart. And the water was able to penetrate down to a depth of 100 centimeters in less time than it used to take down to get to 40 centimeters. So he's using about 60% less water this year versus last year. And that's very, very key. There's a lot of areas where water is scarce. In fact, I'm hearing this year that there's a big drought going on. I personally haven't seen it rain here in Florida in over a month, and that's very unusual. Usually by May, June, we're getting every other day, we're getting some rain. I haven't seen rain in over a month and a half. And I'm hearing the same thing up and down the east and west coast. And it seems like there's a big problem with droughts. I'm also seeing it's getting kind of cool. It's still kind of frosty over on the west coast. And again, those weather patterns are being affected by the carbon cycle in the soil. So if we're able to feed and improve the soil, we're going to have a big, big effect and a big improvement of our overall agricultural systems here. Now, getting back to this particular one, another example here on soil here, this was on grapevines, and you see here the difference again. Look how thin and undeveloped these roots are in the untreated field versus the treated field here on the right here, the Kyminasi field. And you see also, just in digging up some of the canes here, you see huge differences in the untreated versus the treated. Again, we're feeding that root structure to really improve the quality of the soil. Now, if those of you guys who are interested in improving your soil, there's a couple of different references I can give you, but one thing I want to let you know that um, beyond just putting more nutrients on your soil or watering your soil and hoping the soil is going to take care of itself, you really need to look at how we can really take care of the soil. Now, regenerative farming is a relatively new concept that's taking a foothold and getting some traction. And of course, that allows us to have cover crops and other things which are, adding nitrogen back down into the soil, like clover, like soybeans, like some other things, which are putting that nitrogen back in the soil and refeeding that soil. With Kyminasi Plant Booster, we're really helping the plants themselves feed the microorganisms in the soil so that soil stays into an active, vibrant, high energy state. And that, of course, is what's going to generate high crop yields. It's really not a secret or anything particularly like magical. I mean, I hear people calling our tech magical, and maybe we have results that would indicate it's a magical type of technology. However, the simplicity of it is we're really just helping the plants feed the microbiology in the soil, and that microbiology in the soil is in turn feeding the plants. Now, over the last 50 or 60 years, modern agriculture has sort of depleted the soil and caused a dwindling spiral where that soil is not as active as it used to be. Therefore, it's growing plants that are not as active and not as able to feed the microbiology in the soil, plus the chemicals, plus everything else, where we're actually destroying the microbiology in the soil, and that causes a further reduction, a further reduction, a further reduction. Now, I'm not saying all this to make the villains out of the farmers. I'm saying this because the reality of modern agriculture is we cannot sustain the common practices of commercial agriculture and expect to be around in 10, 20, 30 years. And that's not me being a doomsayer. That's just really stating the facts. Kyminasi Plant Booster is actually helping farmers improve and increase their crop yield in addition to feeding the soil so that we have a sustainable model that's going to carry us into the future. And you don't have to be an organic farmer to use it. You don't have to be a sustainable farmer. You don't have to be a bioenergetic farmer. I mean, we do, of course, service all of those clients, but you don't necessarily require that. So if you're a farmer and you're looking to improve and increase the quality of your yield and the quantity of your yield, and also take care of the sustainability of your farm so that you can have crops for years to come, and of course pass it on to future generations, then you really need to take a look at the Kyminasi plant booster, because what we're able to do and how we're helping farmers is really going to create a long-term sustainable model for future growth and production. And of course, in the short term, it's going to put a lot more money in your pocket as well as a farmer, which we're really excited about, because anytime you can have a win-win-win where everybody wins, that's definitely a game I want to play. And it's definitely a game that I want to support. And I challenge you to give me a call. Let's talk about your farm. Let's talk about the crops you're growing. Let's talk about the issues you're having. And then let's work out how we can help you improve the quality and quantity of your yields, as well as improve the quality of your soil so that you have long-term growth potential. My number here is 727-324-6750. Again, my name is Jim Kurtz. I look forward to speaking with you soon, and join the future of farming today. And don't forget, guys, to stay tuned on Friday on our 4:30 show, because we're going to have a very special guest, Brian Bustillos and Lynn Hoover with Pro Soil Solutions and Ocean Blue Organics. Are going to be with us, and they have a number of products that directly influence soil health, both biological products as well as micronutrients and various other soil amendments that actually improve the soil quality for long-term benefits, and they help reduce fertilizer usage over time as well. So a lot of farmers are excited about that. So join us at 4:30 on Friday for that episode, where we talk to Brian and Lynn, and we're going to show them how the combination of the Kyminasi plant booster plus Pro Soil Solutions is going to really dramatically improve the future of farming today. So we don't have to wait 10, 20, 30, 50 years to see huge differences on your farm. We want to help every farmer we can, and I look forward to talking with you guys soon. Thanks a lot, guys, and we'll talk again tomorrow. Actually, we'll talk again on Friday.